Hi, I'm Jerry James Stone, and in today's video, I'm going to discuss the difference between baking soda and baking powder. They both look alike, right? It's like baking soda, is it baking powder, is it cocaine? Honestly, who knows? But the two leaveners couldn't be more different. Actually, when added to dough, it's what makes our baked goods like muffins and cookies so nice and light and airy. You definitely need to understand how these ingredients work, and that's what I'm going to get into today. So, just so you know, because they look alike, they couldn't also be more different. Baking soda is like 4 times the strength of baking powder. It's like when Bewitched got the new Darren. I mean, we all knew, right? Like, we all knew. Okay, so I'm gonna geek out with you just for a second. We're gonna get into the science of baking soda. Remember this from chemistry class, baking soda? It's a base. If you ever did that reaction in high school or whatever, like you added baking soda to vinegar and you created the volcano, there's a reason for that. The base reacts with acids. Vinegar, for example. Other common bases in baking include buttermilk, brown sugar, cream of tartar, and even molasses. So the thing about baking soda is that it starts to work immediately when you add it to your batter. So you can't just add it and like set that aside for a long time because that chemical reaction is pretty immediate. As soon as it comes in contact with an acid, it starts working. So if you've ever made cookie dough and let it sit in the fridge for a few days before you actually made cookies and you wondered why they didn't rise, that's probably the reason. So how does this compare to baking powder? Well, this is where it gets a little confusing. Baking powder is actually made up of 3 different things, one of those being baking soda. So are you confused yet? That's okay, stay with me. So it's made up with baking powder. It also has cream of tartar, which, just a little side note, if you wonder where cream of tartar comes from, it's actually a byproduct from winemaking. But I'll get into that on another time. And the third ingredient is cornstarch. Those 3 things make up baking powder. And baking powder, the way baking powder works is it's actually dual acting. So baking powder, unlike baking soda, which works immediately when it comes in contact with an acid, baking powder starts working when it comes in contact with the moisture. So as soon as you add it, it starts going. But there's a second reaction, and that second reaction only happens when heat is part of the equation. So baking powder works immediately when you mix it in, but then once you start baking it, that's when the second reaction happens. So what's the difference here? Well, baking soda you use in recipes like, say, Nestle Toll House cookies. It's that acid and base interaction that makes them nice and airy and fluffy. It's the baking soda and the brown sugar. But in a recipe like sugar cookies, baking powder is used because no acid is actually involved in the recipe. There's no chemical reaction required from an extra ingredient. The actual chemical reaction all comes from the baking powder, which is made up of, once again, baking soda and cream of tartar, which is an acid. So why do some recipes call for both? Well, it's because those recipes are demanding little bitches, that's why. So the reason some recipes need both is because they need more leavening than the actual acid that's within the recipe provides. So you can only add so much of these. Baking soda, for example, if you don't balance the acid and the base, then you're gonna get this metallic flavor once it's baked, and you don't want that to happen. The baking powder is a slower reaction, even though it contains both, it takes a little bit more time. So by using both, you can get more leavening, but you don't have to add more acid to your actual recipe, which makes it a lot tastier. So that's it. That's the difference between baking soda and baking powder. Now, if you wanna know actually how to test your baking soda or your baking powder to see if it's fresh, well, just click the banner that's right below me here. Right there, yeah, just click that, and I have a few how-to videos that show you exactly how you easily can test whether both of those ingredients are fresh, because you don't want to waste making a whole batch of dough and making really bad cookies. Nobody wants that. So that's it. That's the difference. Get the heck out of my kitchen. Get to cooking.